Yes.
And one of the things she's really fighting for is to get the vocational training money back into the community college.
Oh, amen to that.
So these kids have done a lot of phone banking and pre-support.
Very good.
Anyway, we want to welcome you to the Bernie Sanders Harbor area for Bernie Sanders campaign office.
Yes.
And the campaign itself is working out of this office, and they're going out to the community and phone banking the ILWUs in here, and we're doing our outreach to member to member, because we've got about 15,000 people that we can reach just in the area, and that's what we're doing. We're focusing on that. We're open 7 days a week, and we're just in it to win it for Bernie. You know? And we appreciate all you've done. And we're glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here too. You said the harbor area, huh?
Yes, the harbor.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Well, I just arrived this morning, so as you can imagine, I'm still on Ohio time in my mind. But I've been to California several times. I have many great friends here. I also have some family members who live in the San Francisco area. So I adore California, not just because I have loved ones here, but also the fact that California, when I ran for Secretary of State in the great state of Ohio in 2014, California, the state of California was my second highest donor state. So I love that. Really supported me and really understanding that it's important to have a Secretary of State that's going to expand and protect access to the ballot box. And I think folks who lived in California also invested in me because they knew that I would be an honest broker and I won that office going into 2016. So I just want to thank you for numerous reasons. Now, Callie, you guys know we all dependent on you to make some things happen. This race is not over, despite what the talking heads may say. It is not over. And the senator himself has said that the path is narrow, but there is still a path. And we will never, ever get another opportunity to do something like this in our lifetime, to have a candidate like Senator Bernie Sanders. Now, I can tell you I've traveled with him, and I've traveled places without him. But I'm going to tell you something. What you see is absolutely what you get. He has heart-soul agreement, and that's how I describe him. And I was telling Erica as we were driving, and we were just really talking about this experience and this snapshot in time, that we are so blessed and so fortunate that Senator Bernie Sanders is not running for president because he believes he's got next, or that this is old to him. He's running because he saw a need. And he stepped into that gap. He stepped into the void, and he's running. And that is a very profound thing. And so as long as he is out there fighting, we need to help him and fight with him. California, you have what, over 400 delegates? We want those delegates. Yeah. We want those delegates. We will get those delegates. But it is. And
Senator, speaking of that, there's several people here that are delegates to the National Convention.
Oh, yeah. So much for your service. You will always hear Senator Sanders say that it's not about him, that he cannot do it alone, but it really is about us. And that is the kind of man he is. And for those of you who have studied his history, and history is important. Sometimes you got to go back to understand what it's going to be like going forward. But this man at the age of 21 years old put his body on the line fighting against injustice at the University of Chicago, against segregation for African Americans. And he wasn't doing that saying, oh my God, I think I'm going to run for president one day, 50 years from now, you know? He did it because it was the right thing to do. In the 70s, he stood up for our gay and lesbian sisters and brothers before it became popular. He has heart-soul agreement. And in 1988, before many people in this room were born, Senator Bernie Sanders was one of very few white elected officials to stand up and support Reverend Jesse Jackson's 1988 run for President of the United States of America. He did that. And the Democratic Party at that time did not want to see Reverend Jackson get that nomination, as hard as it is to believe. And Senator Bernie said he didn't go around talking about himself, but you know, he was slapped in the face. He was physically slapped in the face by a white woman because he gave a speech about why Reverend Jesse Jackson would be the best president of the United States of America. He has heart-soul agreement. You know, Dr. King once said that it's not about where you stand in times of comfort and convenience, but it's where you stand when your back is against the wall. I'm paraphrasing. That's a Turnerism mixed into MLK. But it really is where you stand when your back is up against the wall, that you are willing to sacrifice something for the greater good. And that's the kind of man that he is. Last October, Senator Sanders was was in my hometown. He's been back since, but I'll never forget, he was at Cleveland State University, and he said before it was over 10,000 people there, but the audience was mostly white. And he said to this mostly white audience, he said, as the next president of the United States of America, I'm going to do everything in my power to eradicate institutional racism. Who does that? That would be easy for him to say that in a crowd of people of color. But when you stand up to say to a majority white crowd that in America, we collectively, us together, we got to eradicate institutional racism. I'm going to use the cachet of the presidency to do that. He has heart-soul agreement. Ladies in here, you know that he's for us getting our whole daggone dollar, right? I will use another word, but we got babies in the room, but we want the whole dollar. We do.
79 cents.
And it really is a shame in this country that in the 21st century, we still got to talk about getting women their whole dollar. We know that our white sisters only make about 79 cents, our African American sisters make about 62 cents, and our Latina sisters make about 50-something cents, 57 cents. That is a crime and a shame, and we got to change that. Senator Bernie Sanders believes that women should get their whole darn dollar.
Exactly.
Yay!
He has stood up. Many of you may remember, I think it was in 2010 when he stood up and filibustered for 8.5 hours, I think.
Yeah, I was there too.
Were you there? Now, I don't know if I can filibuster for 8.5 hours. But he stood up and he filibustered against the extension of the Bush tax cuts. If you guys go back and Google the speech. But he wasn't just doing that for people who live in his hometown of Vermont or his state of Vermont. He was doing that for people who live in California and folks who live in New York and folks who live in Ohio and folks who live in Illinois, because that is the kind of leader that he is. He stands up for the working poor and the middle class in this country. He is honest and he is consistent. You can go back 30 years and play something that this man has said. He's still saying the same thing in 2016. Honest and consistent. He has heart-soul agreement. And so that is why you are important. You and you and you and you. That he cannot do this without you. He cannot do this without us. How many of you know, great leaders come and go. One person, but it takes teamwork to make the dream work.
That's right.
And we are that team all across America pushing for Senator Sanders to win. Now, sisters and brothers, I got to tell you this. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I'm miffed. And I'm kind of one of them sisters. If you ever see me on TV, I just tell it like it is.
Yes.
And I do hold back a little bit, but I usually just take it on out there. But I want you to know I was in Nevada. I was there.
Oh.
Don't believe the hype.
Yes.
There was no violence in Nevada. There were folks standing up against a system that was unjust, and they just made it known. No different than our sisters and brothers in Europe, in Great Britain do in the Parliament. How many ever seen the Parliament? They boo the vote. They stand up. They do it. That people were passionate, but they were not violent. And booing does not equal violence. No. Now, I'm not saying that I don't agree that booing Senator Boxer was the right thing to do. I would never do that. Let her have her peace. But what was going on there was unfair. But I can tell you this, there was no violence. And I was in that room for 8 hours. And I personally did not see any violence. Now, if something jumped off when I left, but so far, nobody I've heard of, no arrest. They just truly exaggerated this. And so you can't get caught up in the media because sometimes they don't necessarily report. My grandmother used to always say there are 3 sides to every story. Your side, my side, and the truth, right? And it's somewhere in the middle. But Senator Sanders supporters, we are passionate. We're not violent. We're passionate. But there's no more business as usual. Nobody's getting a free pass. We live in a nation where we can make the impossible possible. And that is why he is running. When somebody tells you that we cannot afford to have universal health care, something is wrong with that. In the most wealthiest nation on the face of the earth, we can make the impossible possible. When he says to our young people that you can go to college and not walk across the stage with debt in one hand and a degree in the other, we can make the impossible possible. And when he says that we need to expand and protect Social Security for our elders, making the impossible possible. that climate change is real. And we need to make the requisite investments and changes in this nation before it's too late, not just for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren and generations yet unborn, making the impossible possible. And when he says that, we should raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
Oh, yeah.
Making the impossible possible. Not half measure. When the senator goes in, he goes all the way.
That's right.
He is a champion for the people, and that is why I support him. So I want to end with this, because I don't want you to get discouraged and don't get weary in well-doing. You keep pushing, because all great movements in this country have come from the grassroots, not the grass tops. And my God, if we can go to the moon, we can invest in our children. If in this country we can abolish slavery and women can get the right to vote, we can have universal health care, we can deal with climate change, we can put folks back to work, we can live in a more perfect union, making the impossible possible. Robert Browning once said that man's reach should exceed his grasp. I don't know about you, but I want a leader that's a visionary. I want a leader that believes that we can make the impossible possible, and that is Senator Bernie Sanders. So 3 things that I want you to remember is, number 1, that I believe that the creator of this great universe has given us 2 hands, one to reach forward and one to reach back, lifting as we climb. We are our sisters and our brothers' keepers. And I don't know about you, I've never met anybody who said that when I grow up I want to be poor. That's the life for me. Nobody says that. Everybody has a hope and a dream, and we need policymakers in place who are willing and able to help people to create pathways of opportunity. All Senator Bernie Sanders is saying that the time is right and the cause is right and the time is now. We can do this. Number 2, and most importantly, we can't ask other folks to do more for us than we are willing to do for ourselves. We have to get out there. We got to fight for this. This is not a coronation. Ain't nobody going to give it to the senator. We got to get out there and fight for it for him. We can do this. We must do this. He has won 20 contests across this great nation. And if we include our sisters and brothers abroad, he got 21 under his belt. Over 9 million people. And I believe it's more than that, because the caucuses, they're not counted. There are millions of people depending on you, California. I know it's hard, it's heavy, but I believe that you can do this, that you can make the impossible possible. But lastly, in the words of my grandmother was born in 1913 in the South. She couldn't read or write, but she could count her money. Sister, she kept her money in the Southern Ladies Bank and Trust with a handkerchief. When I asked my grandmother, what does it take to be successful in life, she said, all you need are the 3 bones. The wishbone, the jawbone, and the backbone.
That's right.
She said the wishbone will keep you hoping and praying, because hope is the motivator, but the dream is the driver. The reason why we do what we do each and every day is because we hope and believe that tomorrow will be, that tomorrow must be better than today. She said the jawbone, though, will give you courage to speak truth, the power to lift your voice, to make it known that you will not stand up and tolerate injustice in any form. But she said, Nina, you know what? The most important bone of them all, the supercalifragilisticexpialidocious bone, is the backbone. Because the backbone will keep us standing through all of our trials and our tribulations. And in this life, sisters and brothers, we're going to go through some stuff. But we can't have a testimony without a test. And we are being tested today, whether or not we got heart enough, courage enough, tenacity enough, oomph enough, push enough to keep on fighting even when the climb is steep. Because we are not doing this for ourselves. We are doing it for babies like that baby and that baby and that baby. They're looking around saying, where the baby? That baby. We're doing it for them and for generations yet unborn. This is our duty, to fight for something that is greater and bigger than ourselves. So I want you to take Grandma's 3 bones with you everywhere that you go. You knock on doors, you make phone calls, you make sure people make that $27 donation, because it takes money for the mission. You gotta have a little money for the mission. You ain't got to have all of it, but you gotta have some of it. This campaign is fueled by people power. And people power will beat money power all day long. So God bless you, and let's do this thing. Are you feeling it? Are you feeling the burn, baby? We feeling the burn.